Admiral Zixtal's antennae twitched ever so slightly as their diplomatic vessel, the Meridian Dawn, settled into Earth's orbit. The iridescent hull of their ship caught the sunlight, casting prismatic reflections across the planet's upper atmosphere. This was the Admiral's first time visiting Earth in person, though they had studied countless reports about humanity's rapid technological advancement. The humans have prepared a comprehensive tour of their North American region. Lieutenant Vex announced, their crystalline display showing the day's itinerary. They seem particularly eager to demonstrate their educational facilities and recreational centers. The Admiral's facial scales shifted in what their species considered a smile. Excellent. Sometimes the most valuable insights come from the most mundane observations. They had reviewed the official reports about humanity's military capabilities, but experience had taught them that true understanding often lay in the details others overlooked. The transport beam deposited their diplomatic party in suburban Princeton, New Jersey. Their hosts, the International Cultural Exchange Committee, had arranged visits to what they called typical human households to showcase daily life. The Admiral's neural sensors constantly gathered data, analyzing everything from architectural patterns to social interactions. It was during their third home visit that something caught their attention. The Chen family residence appeared unremarkable at first glance. Like many homes in the area, it featured clean lines, large windows, and a well-maintained garden. But as they toured the living space, the Admiral's sensors detected an unusual concentration of quantum computational patterns emanating from what the humans called a recreation room. "And here's our daughter, Sarah," Mrs. Chen said warmly, gesturing to a young human female approximately 12 Earth years in age. "Sarah, say hello to our guests." The girl barely looked up, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface, while her eyes remained fixed on a suspended array of light formations. "Hi," she mumbled, immediately returning her full attention to whatever activity had her so engrossed. "I apologize," Mr. Chen laughed. "She's in the middle of one of her gaming tournaments. You know how kids are with their games these days." But Admiral Zixtal had stopped listening. Their neural sensors were processing the patterns displayed in the girl's game, and something wasn't adding up. The light formations weren't random entertainment sequences. They represented complex spatial relationships between military assets. The Admiral watched as Sarah's fingers orchestrated what appeared to be a multi-pronged assault on an enemy position, utilizing theoretical quantum slitstream corridors that even the Meridian Confederation had only recently begun to explore. "What exactly is she playing?" the Admiral asked, careful to keep their tone casual. "Oh, it's the latest version of Stellar Armada," Mrs. Chen replied. "Some space battle game. She's quite good at it, always ranking in the top percentile globally." The Admiral's secondary neural processor nearly froze. The maneuver the child had just executed was a perfect reproduction of a classified Meridian battle doctrine. Yet she had modified it, adding an element of gravitational lensing that their own tactical computers had never considered. Their sensors indicated the game was processing these calculations with unsettling accuracy. "Fascinating," the Admiral murmured, watching as Sarah's virtual fleet executed a series of precise temporal jumps. "And you say this is common among human children?" "Oh yes," Mr. Chen nodded. "These strategy games are very popular. Sarah plays with friends all over the world. They're always coming up with new ways to beat the eye." Admiral Zixtal's scales rippled with intense interest. Either humanity had somehow acquired advanced military knowledge and hidden it in a child's game, or they were witnessing something far more remarkable. Their mission to assess Earth's military capabilities had just become considerably more complex. "Would you mind," the Admiral said carefully, "if I observe for a few more moments? I find human recreational activities quite educational." Sarah remained oblivious to the alien dignitary's growing fascination, her young mind already calculating the next series of moves that would unwittingly challenge everything the Admiral thought they knew about human military potential. Admiral Zixtal's neural augments silently recorded every movement of Sarah's virtual fleet. The diplomatic party had moved on to other areas of the Chen residence, but the Admiral remained transfixed by the display of tactical brilliance unfolding before them. Begin Strategic Analysis Protocol 7. They subvocalized to their neural interface. The air around the Admiral shimmered almost imperceptibly as advanced scanning algorithms activated, breaking down every aspect of the game's complexity. Sarah leaned forward, her dark hair falling across her face as she squinted at a particularly challenging scenario. Come on, she muttered, fingers flying across the holographic controls. The Omega Eye always tries this pincer movement. The Admiral's secondary heart nearly stopped. The Omega Eye had just deployed a formation identical to the Meridian Confederation's most advanced combat doctrine. Yet instead of falling into the trap, Sarah was already countering with a strategy that shouldn't have been possible. Temporal wake surfing. She exclaimed triumphantly as her ships rode the quantum slipstream created by the Eye's attack force, using their own momentum against them. Gets them every time. The Admiral's scales shifted from their diplomatic azure to a troubled shade of violet. The maneuver the child had just casually executed had been theorized by Meridian's top military scientists, but deemed impossible due to the computational requirements. Yet here was a human child, performing it as easily as breathing. "Sarah, honey," Mrs. Chen called from the kitchen. "Don't forget about your homework." "Just one more round, Mom. I'm about to break my high score." The Admiral's neural sensors detected a sudden spike in the game's energy calculations. The AI had launched a desperate counterattack, utilizing gravitational corridors in a way that mirrored classified Meridian battle plans. But Sarah was already responding, her fleet dispersing into a three-dimensional pattern that the Admiral had never seen before. "Lieutenant," the Admiral subvocalized to their aide, who stood quietly by the door. "Are you recording these tactical patterns?" "Yes, Admiral. And they're unlike anything in our database. The child is innovating strategies that our War College has never considered." Sarah's tongue stuck out slightly as she concentrated, orchestrating her forces with intuitive grace. Her fleet transformed from a scattered defense into a precise geometric pattern, creating a cascading series of quantum gravitational focal points. The Eye's forces, trying to navigate through what should have been safe corridors, found themselves caught in a web of overlapping fields. "Checkmate." Sarah pumped her fist in the air as the Eye's flagship disappeared in a flash of simulated energy. "That's a new personal best." The Admiral's analysis subroutines were nearly overwhelmed. The game wasn't just accurately modeling advanced physics. It was allowing for creative applications that pushed the boundaries of known science. And this human child was instinctively discovering solutions that had eluded the finest military minds in the Confederation. "Sarah," the Admiral spoke carefully, their translator converting their harmonics into human speech. "How did you know the quantum wake would amplify the gravitational distortion?" Sarah looked up, seemingly noticing the Admiral's continued presence for the first time. She shrugged. "I mean, it's kind of obvious, isn't it? If you sync the phase variance with the natural resonance of the gravity well, you can totally boost the effect. Everyone in my gaming clan knows that." The Admiral's scales rippled with barely concealed shock. She was describing cutting-edge theoretical physics as if explaining why water was wet. Either humanity was far more advanced than they had been led to believe, or, "Would you mind showing me that maneuver again?" the Admiral asked, their neural processors preparing for deeper analysis. "For cultural exchange purposes, of course." Sarah beamed, happy to have found an interested audience. "Sure. I've got tons of cool strategies. Want to see how to create a temporal feedback loop using nothing but scout ships?" As the young human eagerly began her demonstration, Admiral Zixtal realized their routine diplomatic mission had just become something far more significant. The question was no longer about assessing Earth's military capabilities. It was about understanding how humanity had hidden such profound knowledge within the mind of a child at play. Back aboard the Meridian Dawn, Admiral Zixtal's quarters hummed with the soft pulse of quantum processors. Holographic displays filled the air with cascading data streams, each one representing a different analysis of Sarah Chen's gaming session. Lieutenant Vex, the Admiral's scales shifted to a deep indigo of concentration. Show me the global player distribution for Stellar Armada. The air shimmered as a new hologram materialized. Earth's continents dotted with millions of pulsing lights, each representing an active player. The Admiral's neural sensors processed the data with growing amazement. The game's network stretched across every inhabited continent, connecting players through quantum-entangled servers that shouldn't have been possible with humanity's reported level of technology. Remarkable, Lieutenant Vex observed. The computational power required for this network alone exceeds our estimates of Earth's capabilities by several orders of magnitude. The Admiral focused on a cluster of particularly bright nodes. Show me active matches in progress. The display transformed, revealing hundreds of simultaneous games. Children from Tokyo to Toronto, Mumbai to Melbourne, all orchestrating virtual fleets with the same impossible sophistication they had witnessed in Sarah's gameplay. A young boy in Brazil was executing perfect temporal flanking maneuvers. A girl in Kenya had developed a revolutionary approach to quantum torpedo guidance. A team of kids in Russia had somehow created a stable pocket universe as a tactical advantage. These children, the Admiral's voice carried a note of disbelief. They're all innovating military tactics that our finest commanders would never conceive. Admiral, Vex's crystalline form sparkled with concern. I've completed the analysis of the game's core systems. The physics engine. It's not a simulation. It's processing real quantum interactions. The Admiral's scales rippled with shock. Impossible. The energy requirements alone are being met. Vex interrupted, displaying new data streams. The game's network isn't just connecting players. It's creating a distributed quantum computing system of unprecedented scale. Every gaming console is part of it. The Admiral moved through the holographic displays, their neural processors struggling to process the implications. They stopped at a recording of Sarah's last match, watching as her fleet executed that brilliant temporal wake maneuver. The children don't realize what they're doing, do they? The Admiral mused. They're solving complex military scenarios through pure intuition, unbound by conventional tactical doctrine. A priority alert flashed across their neural feed. Lieutenant Vex's form flickered with agitation. Admiral, you need to see this. I've identified the game's eye opponent. The display shifted, showing the core architecture of the Omega Eye. The Admiral's scales paled to a ghostly white. The patterns were unmistakable. They were identical to the Meridian Confederation's most advanced battle computer systems. How did they? The Admiral began, but fell silent as new understanding dawned. They hadn't copied Meridian technology. The similarities existed because both systems had evolved to solve the same problems. But while the Meridian computers were constrained by military doctrine, the game's AI learned from the boundless creativity of children. Sir, Vex's voice carried a tremor of unease. What are your orders? This level of technological sophistication violates several articles of the Interstellar Cooperation Treaty. Admiral Zixtel studied Sarah's image, frozen in mid-celebration after her victory. Her expression showed pure joy, without a trace of the burden such advanced knowledge should carry. No reports, Lieutenant, the Admiral decided. Not yet. There's something more happening here than treaty violations. These children aren't being trained as warriors. They're teaching us something about the nature of warfare itself. A new alert chimed. Another gaming session was starting. Somewhere in Princeton, Sarah Chen was logging back in, ready to unknowingly push the boundaries of known physics once again. Continue monitoring. The Admiral ordered, their scales settling into a contemplative shade of blue. I want to understand what humanity has truly created here, and why they've hidden their greatest military advancement in plain sight, disguised as a child's game. The headquarters of Future Force Entertainment occupied a converted warehouse in Seattle's Tech District. Admiral Zixtel's diplomatic credentials had secured them a private tour, though they hadn't expected the facility to be quite so playful. Holographic starships danced across the ceiling. Developers lounged in anti-gravity pods, testing new game features. The walls pulsed with real-time data from millions of active gaming sessions worldwide. Everything about the space radiated creative energy rather than military precision. We're absolutely thrilled to host a Meridian representative. Dr. Maya Rodriguez, the lead developer, practically bounced as she walked. Her enthusiasm seemed genuine, lacking the careful restraint the Admiral typically encountered in military installations. Though I have to admit, we're a bit surprised by your interest in a gaming company. Cultural exchange takes many forms, the Admiral replied smoothly, their scales maintaining a diplomatic blue. I'm particularly intrigued by your physics engine's accuracy. Maya's eyes lit up. Oh, you noticed that? It's our pride and joy. The quantum calculation systems were actually inspired by my daughter's finger paintings. She would create these beautiful swirling patterns, and one day I realized they perfectly mapped to quantum probability fields. The Admiral's neural processors flagged the statement for analysis. Could humanity's grasp of advanced physics truly have emerged from such innocent origins? They passed a testing room where a group of children were playing an early build of the next Stellar Armada update. The Admiral's sensors detected the same remarkable patterns, young minds intuitively grasping concepts that had taken Meridian scientists centuries to understand. How do you develop your tactical scenarios? The Admiral asked carefully. We don't. Actually, Maya laughed. The game's AI learns from the players. Kids come up with the most amazing strategies, things our development team would never think of. We just provide the physics sandbox and let their imagination do the rest. Lieutenant Vex, monitoring through the Admiral's neural feed, flagged another insight. The tactical innovations weren't being programmed into the game. They were emerging organically from millions of children playing freely with accurate physics simulations. They stopped at a massive holographic display showing the game's global neural network. This is my favorite part, Maya said proudly. Every gaming console acts as a node in a quantum-entangled network. The more kids play, the more processing power we have for physics calculations. We basically crowdsource quantum computing through gameplay. The Admiral's scales flickered with barely concealed shock. The humans had solved the quantum computing challenge not through brute force engineering, but by turning it into entertainment. Every child who logged in contributed to what might be the largest quantum computer in known space, and the military has never expressed interest in your technology. The Admiral probed. Maya snorted. They sent some representatives early on, but they couldn't make sense of our development process. We don't use traditional programming frameworks. The game essentially grows itself, shaped by how kids play with it. No military doctrine, no rigid protocols, just pure creative exploration. As if to emphasize her point, a cheer erupted from the testing room. A young player had just discovered a new way to manipulate gravitational fields, something the Admiral recognized as a theoretical concept their own scientists were still debating. Would you like to try it? Maya offered, gesturing to an empty gaming station. Fair warning, though. Our young testers are pretty competitive. The Admiral studied the holographic interface, their neural processors finally understanding the brilliant simplicity of it all. Humanity hadn't hidden advanced military technology in a game. They had created an environment where children could inadvertently unlock the universe's deepest secrets through pure play. Perhaps another time, the Admiral replied, their scales shifting to a contemplative purple. I believe I've seen exactly what I needed to see. Maya smiled knowingly. The kids make it look easy, don't they? Sometimes I think we adults overcomplicate things. In the end, it's all just a game. If only she knew, the Admiral thought, just how profound that simple truth really was. The United Earth Defense Council's meeting chamber lay 300 meters beneath the Rocky Mountains. Admiral Zixtel's scales adjusted to the chamber's cool air as they faced the assembled human military leadership. Their diplomatic visit had taken an unexpected turn when Earth's Defense Secretary requested this classified briefing. "Admiral," Secretary Chen began. And yes, the Admiral noted, she was indeed Sarah's aunt. "We understand you've taken a particular interest in Stellar Armada, a remarkable entertainment product," the Admiral responded carefully. "Though I suspect we're not here to discuss games." The Secretary's smile held a hint of pride. "No, we're not. Lieutenant, initiate Protocol Omega." The chamber's lights dimmed as a holographic display materialized. The Admiral's neural processors recognized it instantly, a perfect replica of Sarah's gaming interface. But this one displayed real-time data from Earth's orbital defense grid. 7 years ago, the Secretary continued, we faced a crisis. Our traditional military development couldn't keep pace with emerging threats. Our tactics were predictable, our technology development too linear. Then we noticed something extraordinary happening in the gaming sector. The display shifted, showing side-by-side comparisons of children's gameplay patterns and actual space combat simulations. They were identical. Children were instinctively discovering solutions that our best military minds couldn't see. Another general added. They weren't constrained by traditional doctrine or perceived limitations. They were just playing. The Admiral's scales rippled with understanding. You didn't adapt the game from military technology. You did the opposite. Exactly. Secretary Chen's eyes sparkled. Future Force Entertainment isn't a military front. It's our primary research and development pipeline. Every tactical innovation, every technological breakthrough of the past 5 years came from analyzing how children play. The holographic display expanded, showing the full scope of Earth's defense network. The Admiral saw now why it had seemed so familiar. The entire system was structured like Sarah's game interface, down to the smallest detail. Our actual combat systems run on the same quantum network as the game, the Secretary explained. Every time a child discovers a new tactic or exploits physics in an unexpected way, our defensive capabilities evolve. They're essentially programming our military doctrine through play. But the children don't know, the Admiral stated. It wasn't a question. No, and that's crucial. Secretary Chen's expression grew serious. The moment you tell someone they're solving real military problems, they start thinking like soldiers. They become cautious, conventional. We needed pure, unfettered creativity. The display showed Sarah's latest gaming session. The Admiral watched with new understanding as her casual tactical brilliance reshaped what was apparently an actual military combat algorithm. Your niece is quite talented, the Admiral observed. She is. Though she thinks her aunt just pushes papers at some boring government job, the Secretary smiled fondly. Last week, she discovered a way to create stable quantum tunnels using overlapping gravity fields. Our scientists are still trying to understand how it works, but we've already incorporated it into our defense systems. This is why you've revealed this to me, the Admiral realized. You're not concerned about me discovering your secret. You're showing me deliberately. Yes, Secretary Chen's expression was resolute. Because you need to understand something crucial about humanity, Admiral. Our greatest military advantage isn't our technology or our tactics. It's our ability to turn warfare into play, to see infinite possibilities where others see only established rules. The holographic display shifted one final time, showing Earth's full defensive capabilities. The Admiral's neural processors finally grasped the beautiful audacity of it all. Humanity had created the most advanced military system in known space, not through rigid discipline or careful planning, but by simply letting children play. Your civilization is extraordinary, the Admiral said quietly. You've turned your greatest strength, creativity, into an unassailable defense. No, Admiral. Secretary Chen's smile held both wisdom and warning. We've turned defense into a game. And humanity has always been very, very good at games. The alert came during Sarah's math class. Admiral Zixtal, still on Earth as part of the diplomatic mission, felt their neural network vibrate with urgent tactical data. A splinter faction of the Meridian Confederation, led by hardline military traditionalists, had launched an unsanctioned attack on human space. "How many ships?" Secretary Chen demanded, her voice tight as they gathered in the emergency command center. 17 capital ships, 42 support vessels, Lieutenant Vex reported through the quantum link. "They're using standard Meridian battle formations." The Admiral's scales darkened with concern. The rogue fleet was employing classic Meridian tactics, the very same strategies that Sarah and millions of other children have been countering in their games for years. "They're targeting the Ganymede Research Station," a general announced, pointing to the tactical display. The holographic projection looked exactly like the game interface, right down to the particle effect animations. Secretary Chen's fingers flew across the console, initiating Protocol Omega. "Time to see if our game works as well in reality as it does in simulation." The Admiral watched in fascination as Earth's defense grid activated. Orbital platforms that had appeared dormant sprang to life, their quantum fields interweaving in patterns they had seen Sarek create countless times. "Enemy fleet entering Jupiter's gravity well," Lieutenant Vex updated. "They're deploying in a stellar cross formation." The Admiral's scales rippled in recognition. "A textbook Meridian assault pattern. Your defense systems should recognize." "Look," Secretary Chen interrupted, pointing to a new data stream. "The network is already adapting." The tactical display showed Earth's defensive units moving in perfect concert, flowing into formations that seemed to defy conventional military logic. The Admiral recognized Sarah's signature temporal wake strategy, now being executed by actual warships. "The rogue fleet is responding," Vex reported. "They're shifting to a quantum pincer maneuver." But Earth's defenses were already 3 moves ahead. Just as Sarah had done in her games, the human ships rode the enemy's quantum wake, using their own momentum against them. The Admiral watched in awe as theoretical tactics they had seen children develop through play became devastating reality. "Ma'am," a technician called out, "the gaming network is showing unprecedented activity levels. Millions of players are online, responding to what they think is a special event scenario." On screens around the command center, the Admiral could see familiar names logging in. Sarah Chen, connecting from her school library. Her friends from around the world, joining what they thought was just another challenging gameplay session. "They're actually helping coordinate our defense," Secretary Chen explained, pride evident in her voice. "Every move they make, every creative solution they discover, is being fed directly into our tactical systems." The rogue Meridian fleet, faced with strategies they had never encountered, began to falter. Their rigid formations broke apart against attacks that seemed to come from impossible angles, using physics in ways their tactical computers couldn't predict. "Remarkable," the Admiral breathed, watching as a group of Earth destroyers executed a perfect gravitational slingshot maneuver, one they had seen Sarah develop just days ago. "Your children are effectively commanding this battle." "Not commanding," Secretary Chen corrected. "Playing. That's what makes it so effective. They're not bound by fear or conventional wisdom. They see possibilities where trained soldiers see only risk." On the main tactical display, the rogue fleet's formation had completely collapsed. Ships designed for traditional space combat found themselves caught in overlapping quantum fields, their carefully planned strategies useless against the creative chaos of children's tactics. "Enemy fleet is retreating," Vex announced. They appeared to be thoroughly confused by what just happened. The Admiral's scales shifted to a deep blue of contemplation. They had just witnessed humanity's greatest military innovation in action, not a weapon or a strategy, but an entirely new way of thinking about warfare itself. "Your people have achieved something extraordinary," they said quietly. "You've turned humanity's playful nature into your greatest strength." Secretary Chen nodded, watching as victory notifications popped up on millions of gaming screens worldwide. "The best part," Sarah's going to be so excited about beating her high score today. This is so cool. Sarah's voice carried through the quantum feed, her excitement palpable even through the encrypted channel. They've never done a special event this big before. Admiral Sixtel stood in Earth's Defense Command Center, watching as millions of children worldwide coordinated humanity's defense against the remaining Meridian Splinter Fleet. The first engagement had driven them back, but intelligence suggested they were regrouping for another attack. Current player count. Secretary Chen asked, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that mirrored her niece's gaming interface. 3 million active users, a technician reported. The event announcement is drawing players from every time zone. They think it's a new cooperative game mode. The Admiral's scales shifted in amazement as they watched the tactical displays. Children from every corner of Earth were forming impromptu fleets, testing strategies against what they thought were sophisticated AI opponents. In reality, their playful experiments were being translated into real-time defense protocols. Sarah's team is taking point on the Jupiter defense grid, Lieutenant Vex noted, highlighting a cluster of players. Their gravitational corridor strategy is, frankly, it's revolutionary. On the main screen, Sarah and her online friends had created a complex network of overlapping gravity wells. The Admiral's neural processors struggled to map the physics involved. The children had somehow turned local spacetime itself into both weapon and shield. Did you see that? Sarah's voice bubbled with enthusiasm as she coordinated with her teammates. If you sync the quantum fluctuations just right, you can create a sort of tunnel effect. The enemy ships think they're moving forward, but they end up right back where they started. Secretary Chen smiled proudly. She's describing a localized temporal loop. Our scientists spent years trying to develop that technology. She just figured it out because it looked fun. Incoming. A defense officer called out. Rogue fleet emerging from FTL. They've adapted their formation based on the last encounter. The Admiral's scales darkened. The Splinter faction had abandoned traditional Meridian tactics, trying to counter Earth's unconventional defense. But the children were already responding, their moves unpredictable and innovative. Hey, they changed the AI difficulty. Sarah's excitement crackled through the feed. These new patterns are tricky. But look, if we layer our gravity fields like this. The tactical display erupted with new patterns as millions of young minds tackled the challenge. The Admiral watched in fascination as multiple competing strategies emerged, evolved, and combined in real time. The game's neural network selected the most effective approaches, implementing them through Earth's actual defense platforms. The beauty of it, Secretary Chen explained, is that they're not trying to win a war. They're trying to beat a game. There's no fear, no hesitation, just pure creative problem solving. A cheer went up from Sarah's channel. Her team had just executed a perfect defensive maneuver, using principles of quantum entanglement that the Admiral had never considered possible. The rogue fleet's new formation crumbled against tactics that defied conventional military logic. Mom, Sarah's voice carried through the feed. My team just hit the global leaderboard. We're actually doing better than the Korean players. Secretary Chen's expression softened at her niece's joy, even as she watched those same tactics devastate actual enemy ships. That's wonderful, honey. Keep playing. You're doing great. The Admiral's scales rippled with understanding. Your greatest strategic achievement wasn't the technology, they realized. It was preserving their innocence. Their joy. Exactly. Secretary Chen nodded, watching as her niece's laughter mixed with tactical updates. The moment we turn them into soldiers, we lose everything that makes this work. They have to keep playing, dreaming, imagining impossible things. On the main display, Earth's defenses moved in perfect harmony, guided by the collective creativity of millions of children just having fun. The Admiral realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in military history, a defense system powered not by fear or duty, but by pure, unbridled joy. 2 months after the rogue fleet's defeat, Admiral Zixtel stood before the Meridian High Council. The chamber's crystalline walls reflected the light from 1,000 bioluminescent data streams, each carrying information about Earth's unprecedented defense system. "You're suggesting," first speaker Cole Scales shifted skeptically, "that we completely restructure our military doctrine based on human games." "I am suggesting," the Admiral's scales remained steady, confident, "that we learn from humanity's greatest insight, that play is the highest form of problem-solving." A holographic display at the chamber's center showed footage from the battle, alongside recordings of Sarah and other children playing Stellar Armada. The correlation was impossible to ignore. "Our rigid adherence to traditional doctrine nearly sparked an interstellar war," the Admiral continued, "while children playing a game developed tactics that our finest strategists never imagined possible." In the darker corners of the chamber, military traditionalists bristled. But the Admiral noticed several younger council members leaning forward, their scales showing colors of interest and curiosity. "I've already initiated a pilot program," the Admiral revealed, triggering a new holographic display. "With Earth's permission, we've connected a small number of Meridian youth to their gaming network." The display showed a familiar scene. Sarah Chen, now leading a mixed team of human and Meridian children in what they thought was an international gaming tournament. Their combined creativity had already produced defensive strategies that neither civilization had considered before. Yesterday, the Admiral's scales rippled with barely contained excitement. A young Meridian player named Zixtel Jr. discovered a way to create stable quantum corridors using only scout ships and background radiation. The council chamber erupted in surprised colors. The Admiral's own child, showing such promise. More importantly, they continued, she discovered it while playing alongside Sarah Chen. Their civilization's children, working together, simply because it was fun. The first speaker's scales shifted to a thoughtful shade of blue. "You believe this collaboration could prevent future conflicts?" "I believe it already has." The Admiral gestured to new data streams. "The gaming network has become a bridge between our peoples. Our children don't see aliens and humans. They see teammates, competitors, friends." The display showed Sarah teaching Zixtel Jr. her favorite tactics, while the young Meridian shared unique insights from her own species' perspective. Their combined approaches were creating entirely new possibilities. But the strategic advantages, a military advisor began. "Are secondary," the Admiral interrupted firmly. "The true value lies in understanding how humans approach problems. They don't see physics as a constraint. They see it as a playground. They don't view warfare as a science. They transform it into art." The chamber filled with murmurs as the council processed this perspective. The Admiral's scales maintained their confident hue as they delivered their final point. "I propose we establish a joint human Meridian gaming initiative, not as a military program, but as a true cultural exchange. Let our children play together, dream together, imagine impossible things together." First speaker Cole Scales rippled with decision. "And you believe this will make us stronger?" "No," the Admiral smiled, thinking of Sarah's laughter as she demonstrated her latest tactical innovation to Zixtel Jr. "I believe it will make us better." The council chamber erupted in a cascade of debating colors, but the Admiral knew the outcome was already decided. They had seen humanity's greatest strength firsthand. The ability to turn even the most serious challenges into play, to approach problems with joy instead of fear. As if to emphasize the point, a new alert chimed through their neural feed. Sarah and Zixtel Jr.'s team had just broken another record on the global leaderboard. Their victory celebration, a mix of human cheers and Meridian color flashing, painted the future in shades of hope. The Admiral's scales shifted to the deep purple of contentment. They had come to Earth expecting to assess a potential military threat. Instead, they had discovered something far more powerful, a civilization that had preserved the wisdom of children, understanding that the most profound solutions often emerge from the simple act of play.